Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
One gift that never gets returned? Trick question. It's 3 gifts: beer, wine, and spirits. And with Drizzly, you can send the gift of drinks right to your loved one's doors. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and holiday spirits, then get them delivered right to that lucky someone's door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly is giving customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code JINGLE at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to a very special Bundesliga Gegenpressing podcast. Some big news today coming out of Munich, and we'll do something a bit different this week and have a short segment Gegenpressing podcast out. Carlo Ancelotti has been fired. Chris, there's Chris Williams here, of course, joining me as always. Chris, this has been quite a crazy day for the two of us because of this, but what a day in Munich. Just to rattle this off real quick, this is the earliest firing in Bundesliga history for Bayern Munich. Previously, Jupp Heynckes, 1991, October 8th. So this is a new record. We thought Ancelotti would be in trouble, but certainly not this early, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, haven't we, last season and this season, that Bayern haven't been playing particularly good football, and we both thought that this would be Ancelotti's last season. I sort of thought, and this was me being with a bold prediction, Manu. I thought that he might go in December. And quite right, you've mentioned this is the first sacking at such an early point for ages, and you thought it would take that familiar trend where they get towards the back end of the season before they make the decision. But yeah, I've said it a lot of times today to a lot of people. It's a shock. But it's not really a surprise, but it still is.
I think it is a shock because it's come so early. This is not a club that does quick firing decisions. And from what I've heard from circles from Bayern, this decision was literally made today.
During the crisis interview, and that sounds just like Thomas Tuchel's firing from Dortmund, doesn't it? Where, we're going to go into this meeting open-minded, and all of a sudden he's tweeting that the meeting's lasted, was it 15, 20 minutes and he's been fired. So, yeah, and, we had some rumblings about a few players not very happy, but Hoeneß has come out and actually said that this evening, hasn't he?
You can't, this is an actual quote by Hoeneß. And I heard this, we were on WhatsApp chatting an hour ago, and I told you that key players have gone to Hoeneß and Rummenigge and said we can no longer work with him. Robben, of course, with that big statement last night, or the big non-statement, I guess. And then Hoeneß has just come on FFH radio and said, and I'm translating here, you can't have the most prominent players in your squad against you. Furthermore, Hoeneß says, in my life, there is a saying that I've learned to value. You can't have the enemy in your own bed. That's why we had to act. Wow. You can't have the enemy in your own bed.
That's wow. Yeah. And if you contrast that, just before we started to pod, Ancelotti tweeted, hasn't he, that it's been a great honour to form part of Bayern's history. I'd like to thank the club, the players, and its amazing fans. Maybe he hasn't seen that interview yet, or that might not have been as succinct, I would think.
Hoeneß doesn't... He says how it is, right? And I think... you will not get a polite answer out of him if he feels things haven't gone the right way. And he says in this interview as well, the fact that in the last 5 days, Ancelotti had alienated 5 key players. I knew of 4 of them. The 5th one is Coman. The other 4 are Robben, Ribéry, Müller, and Hummels. That is quite a clique of players to have against you, you know. Müller at least played yesterday. So that was, some of it was surprised. But Robben, Ribéry were benched. Boateng was not even in the squad, Chris. So I think we could add him to the number 6, right?
Yeah, I mean, when the pair of us saw that lineup, we were shocked, weren't they? I did a little Q&A with ESPN yesterday, and I wanted to change my score prediction after I saw the lineup, because I didn't think he'd go. You don't really have a weak team at Bayern Munich because you've got the likes of Vidal and Lewandowski, obviously, and Sula obviously started as an exceptional player, but it almost felt like he played a weakened side for no reason.
So yeah, the lineup, I mean, some of them have it down as a 4-3-3. I've also seen it as a 4-2-3-1, and there wasn't very much width in that lineup. So the lineup that Kicker had was James, Lewandowski, Müller up front, and then Vidal, Thiago, Tolisso in a 3-man midfield. The problem I had with this is that, you know, all of these players, they all look at the center of the park. Müller, of course, is a Raumdeuter who likes to play right behind a striker. James is a number 10. Thiago is a number 10. It was an odd selection, right, Chris, that didn't offer any width.
No, and you look at the bench, Ribéry, obviously we know can play on the left. Robben, who can play on, either side. Well, the pair of them can play either side. But all his wingers are on the bench, which I just found weird. And then you look at who PSG play with. You've got Mbappe, Neymar, both like to get wide. Alves goes up, he can from attack from the back as well. Even Silva as a centre-back can drag out wide if he's getting covered behind. So it just seemed, well, it took, 2 minutes, didn't it, before Dani Alves did get forward and score a goal. So because Ancelotti chose to go very narrow, they were torn apart inside 120 seconds, which I think we all took a sharp intake of breath because I think we knew what was coming after that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And it's funny that you mentioned that my score prediction for this game was actually 3-0. I just felt that PSG have the better side. And I had a very different lineup for this game, so I didn't get it all right. But I just, he didn't make himself any favors. And when they went up 3-0, I was actually worrying that my score prediction would be wrong because I expected at 3-0 that would be 4, 5, 6. And, you look at the possession stats. I think at one point Bayern had 67% possession, but that possession meant nothing in this game, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's what you do with the ball. And you described it in your match report last night as like handball, didn't you? With the ball just going across the box and not doing anything with any sort of penetration. And that's what it was. I mean, you can have, 60, 70% possession, but if all you're doing, if the ball's just going sideways and backwards and occasionally going forward, that's no good. I mean, look, PSG have won 3-0 with, less than 30% possession. So that shows you, as long as you use the ball effectively, it doesn't really matter how much of it you see.
Yeah, but the result is one thing. And I think it's pretty safe to say I expected that they would lose this game. And, the track record it's a funny track record between Bayern and PSG that the home team always seems to blow out the away team. So nothing is lost in that group stage. And, finishing second doesn't really mean anything. We've seen that in the past. Real Madrid won the Champions League despite the fact that they finished second. And so I thought, they're going to lose this game and they're going to keep going with Ancelotti. But then I guess what's really happened is that selection, not the loss, but that selection. And I think the way he reacted to the criticism of the selection, possibly today in that meeting, I could see him go in and it's like, I select the team. It's my decision how I select the team. And I felt this was the right decision. It's a tough sell though when you looked like that. And, Rummenigge said this is not the way Bayern want to be presented. They want to be in the top level. And, in the past, we have always said that Bayern are one of those three big clubs in Europe, along with Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's pretty safe to say that they were knocked off that throne last night.
Yeah, and, Pep Guardiola was doing exceptional work, and, they won the Bundesliga and they're playing fantastic football. But Ancelotti was brought in because they haven't won the Champions League, and he's got history in the competition. He's been able to win it with a star-studded team, so I think that's why he was brought in. Last season, they were dumped out, although it was a bit of a hard luck story, but, you make your own luck. They were dumped out of the quarterfinal stage. Then they went out of the Pokal at the semi-final stage, upturned, in their own backyard by an excellent Dortmund display. I was there. I saw it firsthand. It was a fantastic display. They sort of blew Bayern away at parts. And then, so they've won their fifth Bundesliga on the trot. Well, that's the minimum, really, for Bayern Munich, is to win the Bundesliga. They're looking for the Champions League, and it was evident that he couldn't do it last season. And I think you're right. It's the selection that killed him yesterday. I think if he's gone with his strongest 11 and they get beat 3-0, everybody can take that on the chin. But if you look into the side and you've got Hummels and Robben and Ribéry, and you're not really doing anything when your whole game plan goes out the window after 2 minutes. It just seemed like, for me, when I was watching that, Bayern rolled over and there was mumblings he could go today. I didn't think it would happen, though. It's odd, isn't it? But now they look like they're just gonna stay with Willy Sagnol for a while. And then who comes in? Is it Thomas Tuchel? Because I don't think Julian Nagelsmann's ready. I think he would suffer a lot of teething problems. He's only young himself. He needs to develop and he needs to build his own portfolio of managerial, credibility first before he jumps. I don't think he can do his learning and his development at Bayern Munich. He needs to do that somewhere like Hoffenheim. That'll be the perfect club for him. But, does Thomas Tuchel come in and maybe act as a transitional manager for 2, 3, maybe even 4 seasons?
Yeah, Tuchel can only do 3 seasons. I think he's a project manager. He's the German version of Pep Guardiola. And I think it is going to be Thomas Tuchel. I have some reservations about that because I feel that his personality, we started at Dortmund, the big personalities, and Thomas Tuchel, that's not a happy marriage usually because he is such a big personality himself. And tactically, I still think he's maybe one of the best coaches in the world. The things that he has made the Borussia Dortmund, the way he has played with Borussia Dortmund last season was fantastic at times. But he lacks apathy, I've heard. He doesn't really care about personal stories of players. He doesn't have a very good link with management. And I can just see him tactically being on that same level than any top coach, but in terms of personality, in terms of how he wants to reform, only the way he deems reforms to be right. He wants to turn over clubs. And this is what Bayern need right now. They need a reformer because Robben and Ribéry are 33 and 34. That they need to reform the club. There needs to be a changeover. And he will do that and he will run through walls. And that could be a good thing, but given all the big personalities in Bayern that are in Bayern, Hoeneß, Rummenigge, Breitner in the background, Stefan Effenberg, Oliver Kahn saying this, it's a tough place to go in, and I could just see him etching or hitting barriers and being on the edge all the time. I wrote in the article that I released on Carlo Ancelotti's firing today, off the pitch, he will be like a Klinsmann 2.0 because, he will just push the club to do stuff that the club might not really like to do, but maybe needs to be done at the same time, because Robben and Ribéry might be upset, but Robben and Ribéry are also 33 and 34. They're not the future of this club. No,
and that's what Tuchel will do. He'll bring an ability to develop the youth players, which, we've been really critical of Ancelotti over the past, 6 months, where he doesn't seem to be willing to do that. And you only have to look at how Serge Gnabry came in and then went out straight on loan. If I was Thomas Tuchel, the first thing I would do is recall Serge Gnabry from that loan, if that's even possible. That's what I would do if I was him to come in, because he's the type of player who, not he can build a Bayern team around, but it would be a strong addition. He's only 21 years of age. He could come in and you've got the other guys in there, but yeah, I do think that with the likes of Sula and Rudy coming in, they have got a sort of spine that they can potentially build around, but they need the right coach. And yeah, Ancelotti wasn't it. But then if Tuchel isn't maybe the best manager, he's not got as much empathy as the players would like. How long do the elder statesmen stick that out? And there comes a point where the older players eventually have to move on. And I think we said, and we've talked about this for Bryce as well, who's on holiday, which is why he isn't here, everybody. So they're going to have to move on at some point. And I think someone like Thomas Tuchel maybe forces that issue a little sooner. I don't think they get dropped instantly. What I mean is they get phased out at the end of this season, where if Carlo Ancelotti would have stayed, I don't think he would have been as up for transitioning the side as much. He likes established stars. And then once again, Bayern Munich have already said, we're not going to pay 100 million for a superstar. We think it's a waste of money. So you've got that aspect as well. He's not going to get millions of pounds like had at PSG to buy in ready-made superstars. He needs to be able to develop them, and that's just not his bag, but it is Tuchel's bag.
Yeah, I wonder about that though, Chris, because Bayern in the past have responded to crisis by breaking the bank. I remember when they missed out on the Champions League. This is a few years ago now, 2007, 2008. Wow, that is a long time ago. Anyways, that's when they bought Luca Toni, Franck Ribéry. Franck Ribéry, of course, was still with the club, and they spent a lot of money at the time, especially in the market that's like hugely different, of course, now. And I'm wondering, I could see, and this would be everything. We were in such uncharted territories. You can sense I have lack of words for some of these things that are happening, but we're in such uncharted territory. Bayern might break the bank over Christmas and start the reform process now. And I'm hearing names here, Julian Draxler being floated around, second attempt at Alexis Sanchez, all this kind of stuff. And, you almost wonder, that is such an uncharted territory. I mean, again, we have to go back to 1991, the last time Bayern were in this situation where they basically did what they did now. Back then, they actually almost got relegated. That's, of course, not going to happen this year, but you still get the sense that we're in a territory now, in a territory of transition with a club of this magnitude that we haven't really seen. And you don't see it with big clubs like that. I mean, when was the last time Real Madrid or Barcelona fired a coach this early on in the season, or any really big club? You don't get that very often, do you?
No, you don't. And yeah, you're right. It is uncharted territory. And who knows, they may go out in January and buy a load of players, because, you've said it and we've said it for a long time. The only general point where German clubs go out and buy in the January window is if things have gone wrong. And I think to lose your manager early on, things have gone a little wrong.
Yeah, a little wrong. It's an odd one. So I guess the speculation really is Thomas Tuchel possibly being the new coach coming in and clearing the house. Julian Nagelsmann is an option long term. Can you think of anyone else who could step in? I mean, Willy Sagnol is the interim. There has been talk, and I mean, this is something that I've heard quite a bit ago, that Willy Sagnol was actually signed in case something goes wrong with Ancelotti. But he only coached Girondins Bordeaux. We don't know anything other than that about him and his coaching ability. He is a Bayern legend. He is in-house, but he has assistant coach written all over him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. And would Tuchel want to work with him, or would he want to bring his own people in? You don't know. But yeah, I read I think it was this morning UK time that once Sagnol was appointed, that was the writing on the wall was already there then. And yeah, for that reason. And maybe Bayern will not make any hasty decision. Maybe they will see how he goes for a few matches. I'm not saying they're going to give him the job, but they may be more willing to sit out for a couple of months if he can maybe get them back on track a little bit. And I think back on track would be some good back-to-back wins in the Bundesliga and also a winning return in the Champions League on the next match day.
Yeah, I've heard, of course, his national team break next week. Yes, you will say again, but it is. And apparently a long-term solution will be found during that international break. This is quote-unquote Uli Hoeneß. So we'll find out soon, Chris.
Well, that's good. And maybe we'll be excited during the international break for once then, if we're going to have some long-term managerial news. And so long-term then doesn't sound like a project. I mean, could they announce that Nagelsmann will come in 3 seasons and that Tuchel will steer the ship? But I mean, that would be revolutionary, wouldn't it? Announcing 2 managers. I just don't think that Hoffenheim would be happy with that. And, I don't think it's good for anyone. I mean, we're looking at what's happening with Naby Keita now. He's not having the best time at RBL because his head's been turned and he's already signed a contract. So, if something like that was happening to Julian Nagelsmann, it would be only natural that his head would start to turn anyway. I don't think Hoffenheim would let it happen. But I do think they see him as a long-term successor. But as I said earlier, he's not ready. And, you can't do your development at one of the world's biggest clubs on the world's biggest stage. I mean, we've seen how he got it so dramatically wrong at Anfield in the Champions League. He thought he could take Klopp on head-to-head with an exceptionally fast front three, and he decided to go with a high line 3 at the back, and they were torn apart. So he won't be able to get away with that at Bayern Munich if he was to come now. So I'd be interested to see what the long-term solution is.
Yeah, and then maybe the last thing that we need to talk about. Now we have 5 players in the squad that basically rebelled against Carlo Ancelotti. Actually, there's 2 points really. First, 2 of these players will have to be phased out. So the next coach is going to basically deal with the same stuff. And second, Carlo Ancelotti was brought in because of his pedigree with Real Madrid and Chelsea and PSG, and the fact that he handled these big names. So I've gotten a lot of questions on Twitter as why was he not able to do this at Bayern? And I think the difference is the age of Robben and Ribéry. It's different than handling players on their peak than handling players and tell them basically in a nice way that, slowly but surely we have to let the other guys play. And so I think that was just a different situation for him. He's always stepped into a made bet and, steered a club to a title with a squad that was ready made for him. And I think this is very different. So that answers that question. But Chris, when you're a new coach, you come into the situation, and you have these 5 guys there. It's something you have to be wary about because those 5 guys are basically the 5 guys you need to appease right away.
And it happens a lot, doesn't it? I mean, over here in England, you only have to look at Chelsea, where they went through a raft of managers because the senior players, Terry and Lampard, didn't like them. And they just chopped and changed managers left, right and centre. So it's going to be a handful for whoever comes in to deal with aging stars, aging world-class stars as well, who probably aren't ready to think that their playing days at the very top level are behind them.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Do we really have anything else to add? I guess we'll have to wait and see who's the new manager. But I mean, for now, that's really all there is to report, isn't there?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And obviously, we're back on Sunday, aren't we? As normal, and we'll see how that match day goes. And I'll be interested to see what it does to Bayern's title rivals, because that will be like a shot in the arm for Hoffenheim and Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund and everybody else that's challenging. Even Leipzig will get a release from this as hang on, maybe the old empire is rocking and now we might have 2 or 3 games, including the international break when they come back, to try and just get on over Bayern and maybe put a little bit of distance and make it hard for them. So it's going to be an interesting weekend and then international break.
Yeah, transition time for Bayern. September 28th, the date, September 28th, transition time at Bayern. Every other Bundesliga team would have done this in the summer. Bayern decided to do that now. For me, it's, as someone who's grown up and lived in Munich most of my life, and has followed the club more or less most of my life and very close to the club, this is the first time I've experienced this. And I think this is such an interesting period now, because we're in such uncharted territory, and it will give us a lot to talk about, Chris, over the next 2 weeks, because we'll get to talk about it again on Sunday. We'll get to talk about it then in, I guess, the international break. All of a sudden we have a good podcast, because we can talk about possibly Bayern's new coach and what he's facing. So it's really interesting, really fascinating time, uncharted times for us as Bundesliga experts, and really, really actually a good storyline to follow. Football is also about the stories off the pitch, and this is a good one.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's sein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hi, this is Rachel Fisher.
And this is Desi Jenikin.
And we host the Hollywood Crime Scene podcast. We're really excited to tell you about the best Christmas ever on AMC+, where every day feels like Christmas morning. From new holiday favorites like Elf and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation to modern and iconic family classics, you can spend the holiday season opening only the good stuff. And with new series, episodes, movies, and fresh content arriving every week, AMC Plus is the gift that keeps on giving all year long. Sign up today at amcplus.com. AMC Plus, only the good stuff.
Imagine if you could shop the shelves of all your local liquor stores at the same time. Well, spoiler alert, you can with Drizzly, the #1 alcohol delivery app. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly is giving all new customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code SAVE5 at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
Let's be real. Dealing with tangled cords can make it harder to do your hair. Break free with the new Unbound Cordless Auto Curler from Conair. Get the curls and waves you want, anytime, anywhere. It's designed to let you experience the power and freedom of beauty in motion. No cords to hold you back. You get your curls and waves your way. Unplug and be unbound. Loose curls, tight curls, beachy waves. The Unbound Cordless Auto Curler makes it easy to get the looks you love. Love your look. Live unbound. Available at Conair.com and search Unbound.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.